हाँ लाइव है।
Hello everyone, this is Prabal from Society for Data Science BIT Mesra. I welcome you all in this business analytics workshop by FLOXUS, our education partner of Data Science Summit 21. FLOXUS is India's e-learning platform that follows a comprehensive one-to-one mentorship-based learning approach. FLOXUS provides mentorship by Microsoft innovative trainers who have more than 8 years of teaching experience. They have given numerous corporate employee training who are now successfully placed in big MNCs like Microsoft. They not only let you judge your understanding with industry-oriented projects, but also provides complete support for finding internships. Now I would like to welcome our Priyaranjan sir from FLOXUS. Priyaranjan sir has worked for 3 years with TCS in corporate network security, change management, as well as in numerous projects using agile methodology. Priyaranjan sir began his journey with the Goa Institute of Management last year. So, with no much further ado, over to you, Priyaranjan sir.
Hey, hi. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. So we'll start off with what we have in presentation. So once my screen is visible, just give me a confirmation. Hold on. Okay. So is my presentation visible to everyone? If you can give me a confirmation, Akshat or someone.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay. So today we'll be talking about business analytics. And before we dive into what we have in place today, so let me talk about myself. So I began my journey with Goa Institute of Management last year. So I've been pursuing big data analytics from there, and I've worked for around 6 months with one of the startups and helping them with CRM functionalities. With business decisions, I was in the product team, so I was helping them to develop newer products. So I'll be discussing one of the product which I proposed to them and which was implemented in business as well. So what exactly is business analytics? Let's talk about it. So the primary function which we do in business analytics is you have to understand data, and you have to understand data so well that the moment you see a data, you are able to derive at least some conclusions out of it. So what tools we have with our hand? So basically we extensively use statistics to understand data and then to derive insights from the data and give uh, various conclusions or insights to business so that they understand what exactly this data means. So what I have in place today is we will be discussing around 3 case studies today. So the first one is going to be very basic, and it is just to have a warm up of your mind and to understand how exactly the data is read. And then we'll move on to a case study which is specifically designed for college going students. And from that, we'll be moving on to a case study which is based out of a mediocre shampoo brand of Jharkhand and how this shampoo brand changed its sta- basically marketing standpoint, and now it is doing good. And what exactly were the changes done? We'll talk about those things. So, without wasting time, let's dive into one of the first case study which we have. So, the first situation which we have is we'll be discussing how we read data tables and how we can basically talk about the data in a story format so that the management or the company in which we work, they understand what the data is. Okay, what we have is we have 4 stores. Okay, so these four are 4 modern format stores and they are similar to each other in every fashion. Okay, and they are located in one single city at different location. Okay, and they have almost similar total sales, but the only differentiating factor is that there is a different category of sales in different stores. For example, one of the store may be higher in FMCG, other may be higher in staple, another may be higher in maybe instant noodles or some stationery items or something like that. Okay, so we have to understand about what the data is, and we'll see how to go about it. Okay, so I'll be presenting you the data table and I'll try to make you understand about what this data is. Okay, so there are two tables in front of you. The first table which is present, which it shows the brand purchase in each store of instant noodles. So we are going to discuss about what instant noodles that are available and how these stores are purchasing those instant noodles. So these are the four stores, and the first category is people who are only purchasing Maggie. The second category is people who are purchasing Yippee or Top Ramen or any other brands. And the third category is of those people who are purchasing both the brands. All right. So let's talk about the first store. So the first store is purchasing Maggie of about 70% and Yippee of about 20%. And there are 10% people who are purchasing both. Similarly, if we look into store 2, you can see the data, and store 3 and store 4. All right. So this data basically depicts what is the quantity of product or among the buyer of instant noodles in each category, which buyer is purchasing what. And the second data which we have here, so this basically shows the percentage contribution of buyer of instant noodles from each of the store. So what does this mean? So this means that among these buyers, so among if there are 100 quantity of Maggie was sold, then store 1 was selling about 18 packets of Maggie. Store 2 was selling around 27 packets of Maggie. Store 3 was selling 42 packets of Maggie, and store 4 was selling 13 packets of Maggie. So this is what the data is which we have in front of us. And using this data, we'll try to derive some insights about this store, where the store is located, what is the catchment area of store. So catchment area basically means what is the category of people who visit the store, what kind of people are visiting the store. Okay, we'll try to derive those ideas. So if you guys are having any idea about, or if you guys want to throw in some answers about what you understand from the data, you're free to type in the chat box of any platform that you're connected to. Maybe Akshat will tell those answers to me if needed, or if you have any questions, you can post in your questions as well. So what are we trying to derive using the data which is present in front of us? So there are two questions. All right. So, reading the two tables, what will you conclude about the instant noodle sales from the four stores? How these four stores are selling instant noodles? What can you conclude about it? And next, can you make some guess about the difference in the catchment profile? So, we talked about what catchment profile is, the kind of people who are visiting the store. All right, let's go back to the data, and I will try to give you few insights about what I can see. So the first insight could be, see, if you talk about the first row of data, you can see that the store 1, 2, and 4, they have higher category of Maggie sales, right? They have around 70% of Maggie sale here, 75% here, and 85% here. But store 3 is having only 55% of Maggie sales, right? But if you look into, so this means that the store 1, 2, and 4 are having better Maggie sales, but not of other categories. So other category sales are not maybe getting pushed by these stores, right? And stores 3, if you see, store 3 shows that Maggie sale is around 55%, and EP and top ramen sales is around 35%, and people who are buying both is around 10%. So this basically explains that the store 3 is having buyer who are purchasing both type of both varieties of Maggie, and they are basically purchasing different types of instant noodles also, right? Also, if you look into this data shows that even though store 3 is having around 55% of Maggie sale only, that 55% of Maggie sale is contributing to total of 42% of Maggie sale of entire Maggie sales, right? If around 100 Maggie was sold, around 42% of Maggie is being sold by store 2 only. So this gives some idea of about store 3, that store 3, even though is having lesser percentage of people buying Maggie, but then it is the highest contributor of people of Maggie being sold there. Also, similarly, you can talk about Yippee, Top Ramen, and people who are buying both. You can see the contribution of store 3 is pretty high on Maggie as well as other instant noodle brands. So what this explains is that people who are visiting store 3, these people are belonging to basically a clan who is very open to instant noodles, and who are very like uh, who are very close to advertisement, so that they are aware about what advertisement is going on, which new brands of instant noodles are coming up, and they are approaching store 3 and buying up. So what can you talk about the age profile of this group? So if you talk about age profile, they would be some youngsters, right? So the store might be typically located at a place which is close to a maybe hostel or maybe a college, in which maybe a place where students live. Maybe if it was a store in Ranchi, they would it would be located somewhere around Lalpur area, which is the primary area in which students from different cities live, right? So the idea is, just by looking at this data, you are able to conclude a lot of things about these stores, right? Few of the conclusions, I'll talk about few of the conclusions in my next slide. So once you have understood the data, we'll talk about the conclusion now. Some simple conclusions which I took, I have already explained about it. So store 3 is having lesser number of Maggie solution. Okay, so let's talk about the catchment profile, right? So will catchment profile, as I told, that it will be between younger people would be buying Maggies, younger people or people who are having double income households or people who are bachelors. So these people will be more prone to eating Maggie because it has an instant noodle, so it is easier to cook, right? And people who are psychographically more open to trying new brands, so maybe they are more exposed to media. So if we can conclude this about store 3, I can maybe target store 3 for, if I'm a company who is trying to maybe introduce a new brand of noodle, I can target store 3, and maybe I can target store 3 and give them some sort of offer of purchasing my brand and showcasing my brand in front of it, so that people who are visiting there can purchase my brand, and my sales of my particular instant noodle brand will increase, right? So this is how you read data. So this was a very basic case about how you can see a data table and then make conclusions out of it. All right. So with that constraint being sold, so okay, so we can talk about the catchment profile of store 4 as well. Okay, which will be completely opposite of what store 3. Okay, let me talk about that quickly and then we'll move on. So if you talk about store 4, which was having 85% Maggie sale, 10% of EP top ramen sales, and 5% of both, it was not contributing pretty high on the instant noodle category, right? So the sale from this store number 4 is very less. So what we can conclude is, the catchment profile or the profile of the users visiting this store would be entirely opposite of what the users who are visiting store number 3, right? So similarly, you can read data and make conclusions out of it. And one of the most important thing in business analytics is you have to make data ready in a readable format so that people can look onto it and then make uh, better judgments. If the data is not readable, if the data is maybe, I'll talk about it more in once I show you a data set. All right. So once we move ahead from this, we'll come to the brand X analysis of this brand a bit later. So before I move on to this, we'll talk about one typical case which I solved for a business. Okay, let me open this Excel. All right. So this was the case. Okay, so I'll talk about the business problem. The business problem was, last year, typically because of COVID, most of the colleges were closed and the admissions had taken a toll. People were not getting admissions to college, and the applications which were coming to college were not very good. And the counselors, so this may not be applicable to a good college, but for maybe colleges who are not very good. So there are counselors who call student and ask them to take admission in their college, right? So counselors were facing a challenge in calling students. The problem was, so for example, in one of the University of Chennai, SRM University, around 10 lakh application was there, but then they have around maybe 6,000 seats, including all the courses. For 6,000 seats, the counselor cannot call 10 lakh people and get them onboarded. Right. So, but they cannot call 10 lakh people. None of the counselor will have that bandwidth to call 10 lakh people. So what my model did was, my model was to ease out this problem. So a typical data which was presented to me was similar to this. So now it has around 26,000 rows. The data which I had was having close to around 10 lakh rows. So dealing with that data in Excel is almost close to impossible. So I use Tableau for doing the data cleaning part and all those things. So this data does not make any sense to the counselor, and the counselor had to one by one pick each of the student and keep on calling him, right? But then that was not very practically possible for him or her to keep calling these students and get them admitted, right? So what my model did was, my model was basically classifying these students based on the previous record of the college, based on the previous placement record of the college, or maybe the previous track record of the kind of student which are getting enrolled in the college. My model had to predict which student is having a better chances of taking admission. So it should not be which student is a better student. For example, consider St. Xavier College. So St. Xavier College, though a person who is scoring 95% in maybe one of the qualifying examination would not take St. Xavier College of Ranchi, he may take St. Xavier College of Kolkata, right? So 95% wala student would not be a better match for St. Xavier's Ranchi, it would be a better match for St. Xavier's Kolkata. So those things have to be taken into consideration based on the previous data which was available, and then we had to devise a model which was basically predicting the probability of students who are taking admission. All right. But then this was not to be done using Python because the management people do not understand Python or R. And even though if you just derive a solution out of it and show them, they will completely reject it because they have no clue about what exactly is going on in the backend. So to make them understand, the model was simulated in Excel, and were basically able to. Okay, I'll show you the simulation page directly. Okay, so what I had done was, let me zoom in a bit so that it becomes clear. So these are the variables which were used. So these are the variables, the column J variables. These were the variables used to identify which student is having a better match, which student, how the scoring of the student would be done. So the first variable, if you talk about the first variable, is state. So student may belong to a particular state. So different states were chosen. The device through which the student has taken registration, primary traffic channel. Let's talk about what the idea was. The idea was to basically create a score of these students. And okay, so what does this simulation page do? The moment you, okay, sorry, okay, so the moment you make changes here, maybe in the state category, if you're from Andaman and Nicobar, maybe if I move to Andhra Pradesh, this probability changes, and also the color and the background and all those things changes. The moment I change the registration device, this probability would change, right? So this was the categorization which was done for student. So the moment a student fills in the application form, it can be done either way, right? The moment a student fills in the application form, it will give a predictive score to the counselor that this student is having 92% chance of getting admission to this college, and the profile of the student will come on the top of the stack. Okay, and so the counselor can easily see, okay, so he is having 92% chance of getting admission to my college. Let me call him and see if he is willing to take admission or not, right? So and we can talk about the form completion percentage. We can talk about what is the percentage obtained, and if the percentage gets reduced, the prediction gets reduced, and if this percentage gets reduced, the prediction gets reduced, right? Okay, how exactly it is being calculated? Let me give in some minutes in that. All right. So what I did was, I'll not talk about the entire thing what I did. So let me just talk about the first thing, and others are almost similar to what is being done here. Okay. So we took 2 years of data, past 2 years of data, and we saw which kind of student is taking admission and how are the percentage. So let's talk about the class 10 percentage, right? So we have a range of percentage. So from 95 to 95.9%. So 95.9% was the last percent that student took admission in this college. And this is all other percentages. Okay. This column basically shows the number of applications which were received. First is around 3,000 applications were received for this. And among 3,000 applications, 117 were the total selection. That means 117 people took the admission. So which contributes to around 43%, right? And in this range, in this particular range, so this was the application count. 70 students had taken admission. So this basically is the percentage of total. So what percentage of total is? So the sum of this would be 100, and this is the total percentage of students who are taking it. So based on the percentage of total admissions which were done, we have assigned a probability score. All right. So to assign the probability score, so since 43% of students are taking in admission who are having a percentage of 95% in class 10, so we will be giving a probability of 1 to these students. Similarly, other areas were also done in a similar fashion. So the idea is once you have this probability score, you will have to basically define weights for other attributes. So the attributes which were taken in this solution, the attributes means the variables which I just talked about. So these weights will be defined in. Okay, so the weights are defined based on the college criteria. So these weights are basically defined as per the college criteria. So ultimate result is the ultimate result would be, so once you have this probability score, you multiply different probability scores with these weights. The sum of these weights will always be 1. So once you have that, you will be getting a weighted probability score for one student. Okay, so that is what is getting calculated here. So the model was okay. So let's talk about the model as well. So for different state was having different probabilities, and these probabilities are getting multiplied to the weights which we had already defined, and based on this weights, we are basically defining up which student is having what kind of prediction of getting admission to this college. All right. So how this helped the counselor? So this data was basically so once you have the total prediction data, this data for the entire people who have applied is getting maybe transferred to a Excel sheet, and from that Excel sheet we will be having a lot of dashboards prepared, and those dashboards will be defined up based on maybe most probable candidates who are having a few lesser probabilities. 3 4 categories were defined, and the moment a counselor used to click on it, the moment a counselor used to click on it and then click on the particular state in which the counselor wants to see, he will be having maybe shortlisted a top 100 candidates or top 50 candidates who are most willing or most exact match to this college. So once the counselor has that, the life becomes easy. He can just pick up the phone and start calling people. So this was basically implemented in the CRM tool which my company had, and it is under production now. All right. So this is what the idea is. And if you guys have any questions on it, you can start posting on the chat window, and we'll take it up at the end of the presentation. All right. I have already filled in. So once you make any changes here, the prediction changes, right? So that this becomes a bit useful. All right. So we'll quickly move on to the third case. The third case which I have here is about a mid-price shampoo brand. So the case here is not from the current date. The case here is around from the year 2007, in which this brand was launched, and the brand was doing exceptionally good in the starting of the year. But the start this brand started performing a bit differently by the end of the year. It started performing very poorly. The sales had dropped, and all those things we'll see once we see the data. We'll see. So this will be a bit um, technical to say the least. So once you must have some idea of what marketing analytics is, and I'll try to make it as simple as possible. And okay, so with that, let's dive onto the data and let's see what we have. Okay. So what you will be done is, typically once you are working in a firm, you will be presented with the data in this format, and you will be supposed to answer questions or queries which the people are having as to why the brand is not performing, what exactly is not performing, what could be the advertisement campaigns, and how the advertisement campaigns could be improved. So these were the questions which will be posed to you as a business analyst, and you are supposed to give a good presentation of understanding of how what the data is, what it speaks of, and all right. So okay, so a typical question could be like this: draw conclusions on what has happened in the past year for the product category as well as the shampoo brand. So this data also talks about the product category as well, right? And what has been the successes and failures. So why brand X has been successful, due to what factors brand X has been successful, and due to what factors brand X has not been successful. So this has to be backed up by data, and once you have data backing this up, you can make some hypotheses or some assumptions based on that, and then you can present it to your management. Okay. So a couple of things. So this data is from consumer track. This will be consumer panel data from, I guess, Nielsen, and this is the retail audit data from Kantar, and media data is also from Kantar. All right. So this basically shows in the year 2007, we'll go one by one. So for the year 2007, between January to December, we had from the consumer track data the TOM awareness. What is TOM awareness? TOM awareness is top of mind awareness. So this basically is the customer. So the moment if I talk about which is the instant noodle brand which comes to your mind, so instantly most of you will speak about Maggie, right? Maggie is the first brand which comes in mind. So what is the brand of shampoo which comes in mind? You can type in on the chat window. What is the first shampoo brand that comes in mind? So this brand X of shampoo in month of January was having 7% awareness. So among the total brands that are available in the market, 7% awareness was with this brand X shampoo. So the moment you talk about a shampoo, 7% of people in a group of people will be speaking that, okay, so this is the shampoo brand, the first brand that comes in mind. So that is what DOM awareness is. Okay. The second column is the second column is your from consumer panel. It talks about the category penetration. So category penetration. So shampoo as a category. What is the kind of usage of shampoo in a urban household? So this basically the market is urban Jharkhand market, right? So we are talking about the urban areas of Jharkhand when we are not talking about the remote areas. And it is for the year 2007 as well. So as I was talking about. So the category penetration of shampoo was around 80.4%. So 80.4% people in the urban areas of Jharkhand were using the first using the brand using the shampoo at all. Okay, so the figure might seem a bit superfluous, but then we are talking about the year 2007. Those were the times when shampoo was not very commonly used by people, and people typically use soap as well to wash their hair. Okay, so if we talk about the category penetration, so the category penetration has increased significantly, right? It has increased from maybe 80.4% to about 86%. So this might seem around 6% rise, but then if you talk about Jharkhand as a population, this is a very huge increase in the number of people using shampoo as a brand, right? So can you guys come up with reasons as to why there was a sudden increase in number of people using the shampoo in typically in the year of 2007? I'll give you very interesting insight on this particular thing. Okay, you guys can type in your answer. I'll come back to column C and I'll talk about why I believe that the shampoo penetration increased and one of the typical insight about it. Okay, so what exactly this says? This says about the cumulative trial of brand X. Okay, so cumulative percentage trial of brand X talks about what is the percentage of people who are using my brand. Okay, so cumulative trial will talk about, for example, 32% were using and it has increased to 44%. So 44% of people have at all tried my brand at all. So they're not my permanent customer, but then they have at least tried my brand. Okay, so this has increased from 32% to 44%. Okay, let's talk about the market size of shampoo. So this talks about the market size of shampoo in Jharkhand, and it has increased from 4,800 to about 5,300. So you can see typically that the market size of the shampoo was increasing in the year 2007. And if you talk about market share of brand X, so we are now talking about the market share of brand X. So what is market share? is my share. So how much I am selling. Okay, maybe the size of market could be increasing, but my share of shampoo is decreasing, right? It has decreased from maybe 8% in January, and it has come down to about 5.2% in maybe in the month of December, right? So why exactly it is decreasing? We have to look onto it as to why this has decreased. All right. So now we will talk about few typical terms. So these are few typical terms in marketing, and most of you might not be aware of it. I'll try to explain it. And if you don't get it, you can always type on the chat box. Okay. So the first thing is offtake. So offtake is nothing but what is the product sold from retailers to consumer for brand X. So this basically tells about in the month of January, my brand was sold for 389,000 liters. So basically, the shopkeepers were able to sell 389,000 liters of shampoo, which fell down to 280 liters. And you can see there's a very gradual fall in this, right? From 389 to 88, 87, and it gradually fell down to about 280. So this is the problem area. This should not fall down. All right. Okay. And now we'll talk about what numerical distribution is. Numerical distribution is the percentage of dealer who are selling my product. So these are those people who are willing to sell my product. These are those stores. So most in the year of 2007, most of the stores were Kirana stores only in Jharkhand, right? The typical mom and pop shops. So it was for about 48% of people were selling my shampoo, and that these number of shops has considerably increased. It has increased to 67%, but then the entire sale, the entire sale of my shampoo should have increased, but then it is still on the decreasing side, right? Okay. So weighted distribution also talk about the efficiency of the sale, right? So the efficiency of the sale. So this basically tells about sale from my brand to the total product category sale. Okay, so this basically talks about what is the store, the sale of shampoo X in comparison to the total sale of shampoo as a category. So this is what weighted distribution is. And per dealer offtake is the amount of shampoo in liters sold by one of the average amount of shampoo which is sold by one of the dealer. For example, sorry so this will be around 12% of shampoo, 12.64 liters of shampoo was sold in the month of January on an average by each of the dealers who were selling my shampoo. What is SOH? SOH is basically share of handlers. So share of handlers is my market share in the store I am present. So basically, if there is a store, say ABC store, ABC General Store. So if the store is maybe having a lot of shampoo brands, and among those shampoo brands, about 16% of sale was for my shampoo brand only, right? And this sale has reduced to 15% by the end of the year, even though I'll again repeat that the number of stores had increased, right? We talk about the number of stores had increased 67%, I guess. All right. And the market size has also increased. So this basically explains about that there is a decline in the sale of my shampoo. Okay, so once we are done with what share of handlers is, we'll talk about what GRP and SOV is. Okay, so people, you might be aware of what TRP is. The news channels everywhere keeps on talking about what GRP is, what TRP is, and how TRP data is affecting and how TRP explains about the number of people who are watching their channel. G. Okay, so before I talk about GRP, I hope you guys are answering about what category penetration is and why this has increased from 80% to 86.7%. Okay, and okay, so we'll talk about what GRP is. One second. Let me edit the comment so that it becomes easier to read for you people as well. Okay. So GRP basically talks about the sum of total TRPs of all the programs where the advertisement has been aired. So if you are what TRP would be? TRP is the total airing time of your, maybe your advertisement, and it is a ratio of total airing time of your advertisement to the time people are watching it. So that is the ratio will be explained by what TRP is, and the sum of all the TRPs would be GRP. So this GRP of 50, 30, 70, so this might not explain about how exactly the media data is doing. And the share of voice, the SOV, the share of voice is my brand share of GRP with respect to the total GRP spent by all the brands in the product category. Okay, so let's try to understand what this is. So this will be my brand share of GRP. So shampoo X share of GRP would be this. Okay, so what this do data does is this do data can be used to understand what is the GRP of the shampoo category, total GRP of the shampoo category, right? So this talks about that there are about, so this data will be typically used. So this talks about that the media data shows that my advertisement campaign had about 1000 GRP, which has steadily increased to 3000 and then fell down to 1000 and then increased to 5000 and 4500 and then again fell down from 4500 to maybe 2500. Okay, so these two, let's talk about what happened here for a minute. Okay, so what happened here is you can see this in here that my advertisement had a better impact about 5000 and 4500 in the month of October and November. And also we'll talk about one more data point. Okay, so even though the top of mind awareness was not pretty much here, my total GRP of the shampoo category was doing good. The reason why this was happening is, and let's see about what the market share is. Okay, so the market share was probably falling and it was not doing good. The typical reason for the total GRP of shampoo category doing good is because of the festival seasons during this month. So as a category during the month of October, November, and even September as well. So basically, these are the seasons in which we have festivals, and typically people have a habit of spending more during these seasons. And if we also talk about, okay, so one more interesting insight which can be derived is during the month of October, November, December, it is pretty cold, and number of people who are actually using shampoo falls considerably, considering the month of May, June, July, or maybe August, September as well. So people might be using more shampoo during those years, and maybe in October, November month, this reduces. Okay, so talking about the category penetration, one of the interesting insight which I got from one of the student was, so in the year 2007, India won the World Cup, and during those days, Mahendra Singh Dhoni was in limelight, and he was famous for having good hairs, right, longer hairs and all those things. So this could be one of the reason as to why people are having were more prone to growing longer hairs, using shampoos in their hair so that their hair looks good. So that could be one primary reason as to why there was, because India won the World Cup and Mahi was in limelight. This could be one primary reason as to why in Jharkhand area the category penetration of shampoo had increased. Another important insight which can be derived is there was like huge urbanization during the time in Jharkhand, right? And because of this urbanization, the shampoo category penetration had increased. Also, um, there was a steep competition. If we talk about the sachet of shampoo sachet, if you guys remember, if you guys know what shampoo sachet is, the smaller packets of shampoo. So nowadays that is very common. But back in 2007 or maybe the days older to that, this was not very common. And brands like, for example, Dove would not never have come in a sachet, but nowadays they do come, right? But Dove as a brand and maybe Tresemme as a brand or L'Oreal as a brand, these people never would have thought of coming into sachet because they considered themselves too elite to come in a smaller pack. Because of this, people were very unwilling to go for a big bottle of shampoo, to a big bottle of shampoo, which was a product which they rarely use. Maybe twice a week, they would have used shampoo, or maybe once a week they would have used shampoo. So they might not be willing to spend more on a big box of shampoo, right? So these things were realized later on, maybe around 2010 or 12, around that time, that introducing shampoo sachet is more important because a shampoo sachet would enable even the smallest of people to at least try their brands. And once you are basically hooked to a brand, right? Once you are maybe hooked to a brand called as Tresemme, and you kind of liked the sachet product of that brand, you may be willing to spend on a bigger bottle as well. But that might not be the case, that you may not directly go to a shop and then purchase a bigger bottle and start using it. Okay, so these were a few of the insights which can be derived from this. A couple of insights which I wrote down in my PPT. I did not, as a, it took some time to explain the insight using this only. So we'll talk about how the number of stores were calculated, and then we'll move on to some insights of our PPT, and then we'll call it a day after taking your questions. Okay, so okay, so calculation of the number of stores is typically done using the offtake and PDO. So this is a typical marketing thing which you are should be hardly bothered about. So this category, the number of stores, as you can see, is increasing, right, from 30,000 to 43,000, but the shampoo was decreasing, and we'll discuss about what probably was the reason of shampoo decreasing. Let's go to the PPT, and we will start talking about it. Okay, I will not be discussing the entire point, and though I'll try to make this PPT available for you all. So we have seen that the market size has increased, but the market share has decreased from around 8.1% to 5.2%. The market share of my shampoo brand has decreased. So there are a couple of explanations which I have written down here. I'll be reading a few of them, and you are free to read others. Okay, so the competitors and the number of products launched in the current year would have increased. So newer brands would have come, they would have been more attractive color, and other variants would have been launched. The GDP growth was high, so because the GDP growth in Jharkhand in India was about 9.1%, and the poverty ratio had reduced by 5%, and it had become 21% by the year 2007. So these were also, the literacy rates have increased from 65% to 75% within the plan period only. So within the period of 2007, there was 10% increase in the literacy rate. So this was available from the Government of India website. So these things basically explains about that Jharkhand as a state was moving rapidly towards urbanization, right? And because people are becoming more aware, and the per capita income was maybe increasing, so because of these things, people are maybe watching more advertisements and getting more hooked up towards purchasing a shampoo. All right. So we'll talk about a heat map which was generated. So the GRP with respect to these things, you can typically look onto it. I might not be like, I'm not going to discuss more on the heat map. And you can see the top of mind awareness is peaking around September, right? We just saw, and it is falling again. So we just saw here. Let me see. At the top of 1 second. Okay. So we just saw here that the top of mind awareness is increasing around September, right? It has become 10 and 12, if you guys can see. And then it has receded to 8 or 7 in the next months. All right. So the reason could be, let me, okay. So less visibility of the product, right? During those time, it was basically, the setup was a typical Kirana setup, wherein you are not able to see all the product at once. You basically call out a product, and then the guy brings out the product and give it to you. You maybe call, okay, I want Tresemme, so he'll go inside and bring Tresemme and give it to you. You will not be having the ability to basically look and feel a product, understand the ingredients of this product, and then make a wise decision as to which brand you want to purchase. So the only thing is you have to go speak out a product name and then he'll give it to you, right? So because of this, people who are not aware of this my brand, and we also saw that my media campaigns are not doing pretty good. They are basically not doing pretty good. The share of voice was reducing. So because of this, because my media campaign is not doing this good, people are not having top of mind awareness. People are not aware of my product, so they were not asking for these product in a kirana store. So people were not purchasing it, right? Okay. So we'll talk about a couple of hypotheses and a couple of successes and failures. The reason as to why this is a successful, and you can see that the cumulative trial has increased. So cumulative trial means the number of people who are trying out my product has increased over a year, but then they are not liking it, right? Even if they are trying, that my overall purchase is not increasing. So maybe after using for 1 month, they are getting worn out. The people are not maybe interested in purchasing my product again. You can also see that the awareness has remained more or less same, and it was the awareness has increased in the festive season, as we were talking about. So typically in a festive season, people are purchasing newer clothes, new, so entire economy swells up during that time. So the sale of shampoo also increases. Distribution has improved considerably. You can see the number of shops had increased for my particular shampoo brand. So the supply chain side of my company is doing pretty good work, and then they are able to distribute in more number of shops now. The reason for failures, you can see that the market share of brand X has decreased, right? And there was also a decrease in the offtake. So because of this, you can talk that this was the reason for failure of my brand. And weighted distribution has also decreased. So the sale of brand X in shops has considerably reduced, right? Okay. So newer shops. Um, okay. So I already talked about my first point. Okay, so we also heard that the presence of my brand X is increasing from 48% to 68%, but the share of handlers has decreased. If share of handlers is decreasing, so the market share in my shop is decreasing, right? So we also see that the viewership has decreased, and expenditure in the media advertisement would have become less compared to competitors. So maybe my expenditure in media advertisement is similar, but other people would have a higher uh, investment in media. Plus, what I believe is people, other competitive brands such as Dove, Tresemme, L'Oreal, these people would have started coming in sachet. And even though if my brand was available in sachet, if these people are coming in, people are getting more attracted towards them, and they are purchasing those brand more than my brand. So my brand sale is decreasing because of that. There are a couple of action points which I wrote down. So okay, so we can create new and relevant advertisement campaign based on what exactly my product does. We can hire a public influencer for advertisement campaign. And so during those days, if you people remember, the FM channels were very big, and they were fairly popular around 2007 area. So these particular FM channel in Jharkhand was very famous. So you can maybe make the RJs talk about your particular shampoo and why it is good. You could have been done that. And this was also the last point. Also talks about a typical thing which used to happen back then. So the local newspaper, they basically attach a small sachet of my shampoo along with the daily newspaper. So what happens is people will be forced to use it because they are getting it for free. So since they are getting it for free, people may use it, and if they like it, they may be aware of my brand as a brand which is making his product available for free, because he's so maybe confident about his brand that his brand is a good brand, right? So people can be maybe lured into purchasing your brand using that. Okay, so other things are very typical about, you can talk about few discounts. You can have buy one get one free for few batches of product. You can give free sampling in small sachet, or maybe you can basically develop a small area. The typical thing which is done by Geo, small they use a small umbrella and keep selling geo sims. So that can be done here. And okay, so different variants could be made available based on seasonality and based on the hair type we have. And okay, in the advertisement campaign, this is done during every festivals. I don't know if you people are have been aware of this or not. So the moment festival comes, for example, the moment Durga Puja is around, there will be a lot of advertisement using the themes of these festivals only. So based on the festival vibes and themes, there'll be a lot of advertisement. So people feel more associated with the brand if they are having an advertisement campaign which is of that particular festival, right? So you can have such advertisement campaigns during those times, and we have also seen that during the festivities, the sale increases considerably in India. So if such advertisement campaigns are increased, we will be having a better sale, right? So so with this, I guess I'm done with the presentation, and the closing thoughts would be on business analytics. So business analytics, one most important thing which has to be kept in mind is to you should be able to understand data. You should be able to understand data and interpret it. And statistics should be at your fingertips. So you should be aware about what statistical concept is. Even if you are aware about the basics of mean, median, mean of data, maybe calculating averages, standard deviation, normal distribution of data, what is skewed and right skewed, what typical linear regression, logistic regression is. If you are aware of these basic concepts of statistics, you are through. You will be having some understanding of what data is. You should also be aware of what storytelling with data is. So a data is simple, like it will be shown to you in form of numbers, right? And you will not be so you should be able to make something out of it, develop some story around it, and then deliver it to the business. So, so this is what a typical work of a business analyst is. Yes, there are tools which can be used, which comes to rescue, say Power BI, Tableau. So these tools are there and they are extensively used by a business analyst. And due to constraint of time, have not been able to show you what Tableau and what exactly it can be done. And though if there are other seminars organized, I'll be more than willing to do that. So with that, thank you so much for a patient listening. I have used almost 1 hour. So if there are any questions, feel free to go about it and ask me up. I'll be stopping my screen sharing. And over to you, Akshat, Prabal. All right. I can see a few questions which are posted here.
Yes, sir. It's a question from Shambhavi Singh. Am I audible?
Yeah, Akshat. You are audible.
What do you think are the key strengths of a business analyst?
Okay, I guess I have answered this. So the key strength would be to understand data, derive meaningful insight out of it. You should be able to tell story. You should be able to form a story around that data. And typical tools which you should understand is either of the scripting language or Python, and visualization tools, maybe Python, maybe Tableau or Power BI, or you should also be aware of SQL. So that comes in very important if you want to query a database and derive, like take out the data from there. Okay, so I hope I was able to answer that.
Yes, sir. So you answer was amazing. So we have another question from Riya Singh. Let me just flash the question on the screen. Which business intelligence tools or systems have you worked with?
Sure, I already talked about it. So there are few more tools to the tools which I have already mentioned. I have worked with SAS, which is extensively used as in banking area. I've worked with Tableau, Power BI, Google Analytics, Excel, Excel, and PowerPoint are always there. Yeah, so these are the tools.
Okay, so basically every one of them which are extensively used in the
Yes,
industry.
and yeah, you basically should have a T-shaped approach. So you should be having in-depth knowledge of about one tool, and then you should be having the expansive knowledge of around every each of the tools. So you should be aware of each and every tool, something about each and every tool, and one tool you should be having an in-depth knowledge of it.
Okay, that's great. So have you worked with SPSS too?
Not with SPSS as of now. I have not worked with it.
Okay. The next question is from Anne Fatima. Can you tell me about your typical project approach?
Yeah, sure, Fatima. So my typical approach would be, so basically I'm presented with data which will be very unclean, right? So the first thing would be to understand data and the cleaning of data. So this is the most time consuming thing. But if you have clean and ready data, then that's the first thing which you should have to develop a better understanding of the data. So cleaning of data, and then once you have cleaned the data, you can go about maybe exploratory data analysis so that you understand about what data is. And once you have done that, if you are supposed to build models around machine learning, you can go about build models. If not, you can basically derive insight as to how I have derived insight based on few statistical concepts. And then you have to make sure that the data which you're presenting to your management is very simple, and the management is able to understand the crux of the matter and not move around the bush. So you cannot keep hitting around the bush. It has to be very to the point, on target, presented to the management in a very simple format. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So another question here we have is from Kavalimani Tripathi. What is the significance of MS Excel in the industry if one can use Python and not? And I think you have already
Sure.
answered it. Like management people
Yeah,
don't know scripting languages,
exactly.
and if we are using scripting languages like Python or R, so we
Mm.
need to build a dashboard, right,
Correct. You
for
have to make
reporting.
sure
Yeah,
that the management understands it. Yes.
yeah, and we need some other libraries and other software for building dashboard too. So it's
Sure.
the work is going to be easier when we use MS Excel.
Correct. Correct. MS
Yeah,
Excel is the most important, most the best tool which is developed for visualization. The only problem is you cannot. So if the size of data increases for more than 1 lakh rows, so it
yeah.
starts crashing. So that's the only problem.
And we are well aware about a city in UK where
Right.
the hospital was using MS Excel to store patient data, and after 1 lakh, the Excel system crashed, and then they had no report
Sure.
of who was having
Exactly.
COVID or who was. Yeah.
It's exactly that's what happens.
So that's what we use SQL database for.
Sure.
Yeah. And question from Richie Katikari: which skills we should learn to become a business analyst?
Okay, so the first skill would be statistics. So that's the basic which you should know about. And then you have to select a domain in which you want to work, maybe marketing, finance, credit risk. You can move supply chain. So there are a lot of domains in which you can expand your skills. Learn about statistics, learn about a domain in which you want to work, then learn about few scripting languages, few visualization wala languages, and my SQL is for everyone, so you should learn it anyway.
Yeah. And another question from Kailalamani: how good is combination of programming based and analysis like using Python and analysis based on software like MS Excel?
um, sure. See, Tripathi, the only thing is if you can use Excel to make your management understand. Management only understands Excel. Typical management only understands Excel. So, and they'll be very good in the domain knowledge, but they might not be aware of what Python is. So, if you're able to do something and maybe develop a model and do something with your model and get to some conclusion using a model, you should be able to present it using a MS Excel and PowerPoint. If you're able to do that, uh, there's no one stopping you.
And since we know that the freshers don't have in-depth understanding of MS Excel, so
Hmm.
basically MS Excel can also be used for scripting like VBA and macro,
Sure. Yeah. MS
and it
Excel
has
can be
some,
used for
yeah,
yes.
and basically creating graphs and visualization technique is very easy in Excel.
Correct. Yes. there is a lot of capabilities which MS Excel has. You can basically do regression as well in MS Excel. You can build pipelines in MS Excel. So
Yeah,
basically,
and a
once
statistical analysis like ANOVA and
correct,
Z-test.
you can do
Yeah,
that. Yes,
hypothesis testing.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah, so some of the freshers see MS Excel as like a Word, MS Word.
correct,
So
correct.
it's
MS
not the case.
Excel,
Yeah,
correct. So once you move to management, MS Excel becomes your go-to tool for a typical task which is presented to you.
yeah. And a question from Devashish Roy. Do we need knowledge of economics for business analytics, or we only have to feed data in Excel?
We don't have to feed data in Excel, Devashish. Uh,
Excel is itself a database. Yeah.
okay, so so if you want to move towards economics, you can see knowledge of economics is very very important for everyone. Basic idea of what economics and what how a country functions, maybe macro or microeconomics. You should have some knowledge of economics, not because it can be used in business analytics. It will be used in every step of your life, and in every businesses you work for. Economics is the most important thing, which I believe. Yeah,
So, okay, sir. So that was all questions, and
yeah,
it was a very great session and very interesting insights were there. Thanks a lot for coming and joining us.
yeah. Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank you
sir.
so much.
And we would also like to thank FLOXUS as well for bringing you to our platform. And it was really an informative session.